I, Tantus Naraban Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on the lands, legends, planes, and planeswalkers of Magic the Gathering, going over each of these elements of the various lores of Magic the Gathering, giving you information, history, details that help you grasp more of the overall world setting that Magic the Gathering has been establishing. So today I wanted to bring to you information about an interesting plane. Rabiah, or as it's known, Rabiah the Infinite. A plane we may never see again. Let me explain. So Rabiah the Infinite is not in fact just one plane. It is 1,001 near identical planes, all clustered around together. They originally were very similar, but time and separation has driven them apart, caused them to separate and become more unique. But all of them, all 1,001, originated from a single plane that went through a strange effect known as the thousandfold refraction. This effect split the plane into the 1,001 different ones. One Rabiah became many. Now the thousandfold reflection itself is something that has been brought in after the set. The set itself had very little information on the plane that it existed in, because the set that it was introduced was Arabian Nights. It's the first expansion. There isn't really a story. There really wasn't a lot of meaning behind using it. So this revision came in that brought about this effect. And this effect was invented for two good reasons. The first off was, of course, legends. We didn't have legends yet, but we had creatures, named creatures, which were effectively legendary in this set. So if there's 1,001 versions of them, and well, there's no way that a Magic game can have 1,001 copies of any card. The Magic game would have to have so many players, each playing with a play set of them and having them all out. So yes, this very well explains away the legends. The other reason is because 1,001 Nights. 1,001 Nights is a set of tales, a set of stories of Arabian Nights. See what I'm saying here? The set of Arabian Nights is based upon those 1,001 Nights. So making 1,001 planes made perfect sense here to match with the original theme of the set, to bring things back together. Now, as I said, each of these planes has begun to develop in amongst themselves, and many of them repeat a lot of the same things. There are some exceptions, though. One of the planes is known as Dark Rabiah, a plane that has gone and been corrupted by very terrible sources, overthrown by dark, insidious forces, and is effectively compared, when it's talked about, to something like a Phyrexia, a corrupted plane. So you can see that each of these planes, as much as they are very similar, has developed separately. Now, there are many famous characters that have appeared in various materials, that, especially the novels and comics that have reflected Arabian Nights, reflecting this plane. Some of them reflect the characters that might be part of the 1,001 stories. Others, in particular Taysir, the Planeswalker, are unique things that Magic brought out. Taysir is a very important character because he had roles in both the Ice Age and the Invasion, where he ultimately met his end as one of the Planeswalkers, the Titans that sided with Urza against Phyrexia. There he finally met his end. But he had his storyline throughout much of the expanded material of Magic. Now, there are many notable locations that have existed throughout Rabiah, but I only want to list 3 here today, because many of the cards are based upon areas that would be considered notable, and there isn't a lot of information out them. So these 3 are the ones that we know the most about. There's Basora. In particular, we know about Basora as one of the largest cities in all of Rabiah, and it is known for the Bazaar of Basora, which is the second largest bazaar in all of Rabiah. And this city appears in the majority of the versions of Rabiah, so it is an important one to know about. The City of Brass is another major one that was created and particularly guarded by a number of brass men, and is home to Ifrits. This is an important one for planeswalkers that might visit Rabiah, as those that link themselves to it will find that they can produce any kind of mana from it. This was reflected upon, of course, that The card itself can tap for any color mana. You take a damage when it does it. A little connection there. And the last one I want to talk about is the Sea of Sand. Now, the Sea of Sand is one that we have very little information about it. But it is the one that we have a playing card for. This is why it's important. It is a playing card for Rabiah. Now, here's a bit of information that expands from here. Rabiah was never the name of this plane in the original Arabian Nights. It's a name that was introduced afterwards. So this card here, referring to Rabiah as the plane and this location, the Sea of Sand, cements that the plane is Rabiah. There are only 2 other places that the name Rabiah comes into play, within actual Magic cards. Everything else is expanded material. Comics, books. Sorceress Queen. Not the original version of Sorceress Queen. That did not have a quote on it. But the 5th edition version, the 5th edition reprint of Sorcerer Queen, had a quote which mentioned Rabiah. The only other time it's mentioned is a card from Visions, Suleiman's Legacy. Mentions Rabiah there too. Only 3 cards considered actual Magic cards have mentioned Rabiah. And one's a playing card for a special version of Magic the Gathering game. Consider that the connection to this plane is so small. And that's where we want to talk about the last thing I want to discuss today with Rabiah, the Rabiah Scale. The Rabiah Scale is a scale developed to show how much of a chance a plane has a chance of returning to standard legal set. This isn't to say the plane couldn't return in other material. It might return in a plane chase card, for example, Save Sand. It might return in a commander deck, might be based upon something from Rabiah, but the fact is, actual standard legal sets, the core sets as they're coming out now, the expansions as they're coming out now, it is the chance that we will see it again in that format. Now, the fact is that when we look at Arabian Nights, the original set, it's not Wizards of the Coast's intellectual property. Now, what does it mean by that? No, they're not having a copyright issue. This is material that's from ancient books, ancient materials that they redid. 1001 Arabian Nights is not really a copyrightable material, so you can do stuff based on it, sort of. But that's an entirely another issue. But the fact is, it's not something they created themselves. They used this information to create this set. That's the major divining factor here, is unless they could somehow come up with an original something based upon this world which wasn't original, yeah. That's where the scale comes in. The scale isn't an actual accurate measurement. The scale tells us how much of a chance we think that Magic R&D will bring back this plane. And this is the top of the scale. 10. This is the lowest chance of a repeat. 1 being a chance that it's going to repeat pretty much, you're guaranteed to have another set based on it. 10 being, yeah, right. And everything in the middle, just representing the various different planes, tells you what chance we feel we're going to revisit these. And these numbers here are technically very tentative based upon information that's been shared by people from Wizards. So, could Rabiah be revisited? Sure. Maybe somewhere along the way we'll come up with a great idea that will allow them to bring back in the 1001 planes of Rabiah and make it their own, rather than just this property that wasn't their own. But the chances of it are slim. Incredibly slim. So we probably will never see Rabiah again. At least, as I said, in standard legal format. Maybe we'll get lucky and they'll have some kind of expanded material where we'll visit it. That'd be cool. But that's all for today. So, I introduced you to a plane which, well, is 1001 planes linked together. And I explained why it was there and why we may never visit it in a card set again. It's going to be an interesting one to see what material we may ever see on Rabiah again. With Magic novels and comics falling out, not really getting those anymore, that was a source that we got for Arabian Nights material, for material on Rabiah. And without them, well, but I hope you're having a great day, and until the next time, I bid you farewell.